Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Discussions of Exploration with your host, Sabrina Ben Salmi. Today I'm joined with a very special guest called Stephen Blake. Stephen Blake is founder of OldPain2Go. Listeners, I really am excited about talking to Stephen because we had a conversation just before we recorded, and he's got some impressive and very thought-provoking insights to share with you. So without further ado, Stephen, I wonder if you can introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, so I'm Stephen Blake. I'm 67 years old, and about 9 years ago, I was in pain. I've been in pain for 40 odd years from back problems, and I found a way to get myself out of pain. And I've been developing that for 9 years now. And it got to the stage where 3 years ago, I started teaching it to other people. And I've now got 1,200 people all around the world who help other people out of pain.
Wow. I'm really happy to hear the leverage, the fact that you're actually releasing people from their pain, which means they can go out and share with the world what they really need to focus on. That's amazing.
Yeah, and the great thing is that we get a lot of students, because about 52% of the population have chronic pain. So we do get a lot of students who arrive with pain, but they don't have it by the time they're trained, which is just one day.
Oh.
So we have all sorts of people with all sorts of problems, and of course the best thing I can do for them is to help them out of pain while they're training, because what better could it be to be somebody who helps other people out of pain, and they say, well, that can't possibly work, and they say, well, I used to be in pain.
Wow. Do you know, could you, for the purpose of the listeners, I wonder if you can go into what do you mean by pain? Is it physical pain? Is it emotional pain? Just kind of touch it, or is it a combination of the two?
Okay, well, I've trained to do both. So I trained to do through NLP and hypnosis. So most of my work was with anxiety clients, and I've helped probably 6,000 to 8,000 people now, sort of lost count. And I help them in one session to change their life. And because I'd learnt this small technique for helping pain, it wasn't particularly good, and it didn't work on everybody, or it didn't work on a lot of people, but it had helped me. And I refined that over these years. And then about 3 years ago, I read an article once, and it said that physical and emotional pain shared the same neural pathways. So in your head, physical pain and emotional pain are no different. So there isn't such a thing as it's all in your head, because literally pain is in your head anyway. So although it feels like a physical manifestation, pain is literally a message that tells you to take an action. It's no different to an emotion. So this is why physical and emotional pain are just the same, because when we get a feeling, the body's giving us the chemicals for what it expects that we need to do. And when we get pain, it gives us a level of pain that makes us take the action. So acute pain, I don't deal with acute pain. Acute pain is when you touch something hot or sharp, and straight away you jerk away from it. Now, it's not, the pain is sent from the brain down to the part that feels pain. But it's manufactured on the basis of, this is happening, this is damaging me, what do I need to do? And it makes you do the right thing. Now, a split second later, when you've moved away from the sharp object or the hot thing, you have a review of the pain, because it says, well, you took the action I wanted you to because I gave you such a level of pain, but now what damage have we done? So when you look at it, it reduces the pain down to say, right, nothing you need to do, or you need to go to the hospital, or you need to put a plaster on it. And it'll give you the relevant amount of pain. So pain is a calculated thing in your head. But it doesn't take into account just damage. It takes how you feel about it and everything else. So if somebody accidentally, if I went past you now and you were sat down and I bumped your nose with my elbow and I said, oh, I'm really sorry, you'd go, oh, no, it's all right, Stephen, it didn't hurt at all. Yeah. But if I hit you across the nose with my elbow, the same blow, and I said, that'll teach you, you would have a lot of pain there. And you'd also need to hold on to the pain to remember I might come back in the room and have a go at you again. So it's got more to do than just damage. It's the fear of the future. It's about reminding you. It's lots of different things. So the thing I've worked on, and it's called OldPain2Go for a reason, is I'm dealing with chronic pain. So I can help anybody who's been to the doctor, and it's a few months later when things should have healed, and they're still in pain. And I've dealt with pain that's been going for 59 years. Wow. That somebody had, and it went. And the beauty of it is that it's instant, because you've got a thing in your head running the pain message. And my idea is, if it's running a message and you can't do anything about it, you know, if you, the gentleman I was thinking about, he'd picked a cement bag up when he was 17, and he was now 76. And his message was, don't pick a cement bag up again. So I just got him to say, I said, are you ever going to pick up a cement bag again? And he went, no. I said, well, you don't need to hold on to this pain message, which has stopped you from doing it again and causing real damage. And this was, I can't do this all the time, but that was 2 minutes. I mean, he went from being in pain to not being in pain in 2 minutes.
Wow.
And he'd been in pain for 59 years of his life. And it was just this agreement with his brain, you know, I'm not going to pick another cement bag up. And it went, I don't need to keep warning you then, because it's just a message.
Wow, I absolutely love the way you've actually communicated that, because my son has been diagnosed with asthma, and I've got some friends that suffer from anxiety as well. And I love the fact that it's a message, and it takes me back to the essence of our body language. Our body has a language of communicating with us, but because we're not
Absolutely
connected to that or understanding that, it's like, oh my God, pain is bad. So we try to push it away. We try to take painkillers, but all along it's given us a message. And you released that man from his pain by making him understand the message, and then it went away. That's remarkable. So for clients coming to you, Stephen, what does that mean in terms of having pain for that length of time and it being gone? What do they say that means to them? Because that's mind-blowing.
It's occasionally I manage to capture things on video, and the best one we've ever captured, it's not the best one ever, but it's the best one we've ever captured on video, was a woman who she'd had fibromyalgia for 30 years. I did this as a free treatment in front of 5 trainees, and in 50 minutes she went from being in pain to no pain at all. So as she realized it, she just cried and cried and cried. And then she kept saying, you don't know what this means to me. And she said it so many times that she thought she'd better explain herself. And she said, I keep saying that because she said, I've been in pain for so much for 30 years that I've tried to take my own life 3 times. Yeah, she tried to take her own life 3 times. And everybody in the room just cried. I mean, it was just, it's such fabulous work, because when people go from being in pain to out of it and instantly, it's so dramatic, and it's so, people find it so difficult to understand, and I'm a bit like a magician who thinks he doesn't know how to do the trick. So when it works, I get the same joy from everybody I help. I just like, oh, it worked. It's like, oh, I've done another one.
Oh, wow.
And it's just so fabulous. And it nearly brings, well, it does bring to tears quite often, but tears of joy.
Yeah.
And it's fabulous. I see things that at first I think, well, I get to see a lot of miracles. I don't perform them because I actually help people to help themselves. So anything that happens is their body doing its natural healing thing. But I see some things and I think, well, that's a miracle. And it takes me several days to think about it and work out why it worked, rather than just putting it down to, you know, it's a miracle. It's one of those things. it's fabulous. I just love it.
Sounds
Absolutely
so
love it.
fulfilling, to be honest. It sounds like such a sense of fulfillment that you're giving people the empowerment. I love the fact that you say to your clients that I'm empowering you to heal yourself, as opposed to them thinking it's all outside of them. And I think that's real empowerment, because as you go away and they go into their lives, they have to feel the sense of confidence knowing that this is about a relationship between me and my body. It's about me understanding myself again and restarting that life. Listeners, I really urge you to pause, rewind, listen to it again, but please take note. I love what Stephen is sharing, because he's got me thinking about a few things, and I'm just, I love what you're doing, especially at this time. I imagine, I've had so many conversations about different things in different contexts, but there's lots of trauma right now. Some people are paralyzed. Some people are like, well, I'm fine. I'm just keep going on like an ever ready bunny. And I'm just watching all variations, and I'm going, it's not the now we need to be concerned with, because I have a background similar to you in NLP, and it's the anchors that's being set now that are going to start showing up later on. It's the aftermath. And I wonder if you've got anything you'd like to share around that.
It's about understanding that whatever happens in our life, there's things we have no control over, and then there's the only thing we have control over is us and our thoughts, and it's our thoughts that give us all the problems. I mean, since all this took off, I mean, you know, I'm blessed that nobody I know has come down with this terrible illness. And I've got a mother who's 93, who I can't visit because obviously we don't want to take that risk. So it's about, I've been so busy because I'm at home, but I work from home. So I've been planning things for the future. What's going to happen? How can I best help people when all this is over? How can I help them now? I did put a few things out saying to people, well, why don't you train in this now? If you're something like a physiotherapist or a hands-on person, your work will have dried up. You'll have no income.
Exactly.
But if I teach you this, about 52% of your clients will have a need to be out of pain.
Wow.
And you could work on them online. So I was trying to rescue people's businesses, but nobody took me up on it. It's quite frustrating. So I'm preparing things now. I've got 2 things planned for the future. I've got old stuff to let go. So whilst I'm teaching people the practical side of physical pain removal, and I can do that to anybody. You don't have to have a background in anything, even though I mainly teach hypnotherapists and NLP practitioners, doctors, psychologists, all those sort of people. And more recently, I've been training people like physiotherapists, Bowen practitioners, and they're using it on people to just who they've never been able to help. And suddenly, they're just one session, they're walking out and never seeing them again. It's not a great business model because you only see a person once, and once they're sorted, because it's an old
priceless.
method.
And I love the fact that you're training the trainer. So it's not just that you're first hand with the clients, it's also train the trainer to actually give their clients, current clients, better services and more instantaneous turnaround. That's remarkable. Do you know, I couldn't help but think as I'm listening to you with regards to, because my children are in the entrepreneurial world and personal development. So I definitely wanted to talk a bit about children and how that works with the train that you do, because I would imagine some of the people that's going to be most affected by this. With adults, I find that we always have, well, not always, but we are in a position where we're somewhat more open to seeking out, we've got an issue, find someone will pay for that. But I find with children, depending on the environment they come from, they're not always going to be aware of what it is or how to describe it, and or even who to verbalize it to. Sometimes kids don't talk to their parents. And I'm just thinking, do you train children or do you train adults to teach children? Because I imagine going forward, a lot of our children will be in some essence of anxiety, trauma, because this is a very hard time for them, being at home, missing their friends, like their whole world is just transformed overnight.
Everything I do is to teach the person that's in front of me how life works, how their mind works, how their mind and body work together. So there's a few things that people don't recognize. And one of the simplest things, and everybody who's listening can latch onto this, because if this message got out tonight and everybody on the planet got it, the planet would change by tomorrow. And it's the fact that when we talk in our head, anything we say in a negative is not really understood by the unconscious. It actually fetches you the subject. It doesn't fetch the don't bit. Because we keep asking for, I don't want a panic attack tomorrow. Well, what have we just shown it? We've shown it the chemicals, we've shown it everything to do with a panic attack, and then we go, and don't give me it tomorrow. Well, why did you tell me then? So a good example is if somebody says, what do you want for your birthday? And you say, I don't mind, get me something I'll like, but don't get me a pen. Yeah. And a few months later, they go in a shop and they go, I've got to get Stephen a present. And they go, what did he ask for? A pen. Yeah. You can't ask for what you don't want and then not expect to get it. So we have to start thinking more clearly and passing that message to your unconscious, because everything you say in a head is a command. If you say, I'm stupid, I'm fat, I can't balance, I'm clumsy, you carry on being that because you can't prove yourself wrong. You're actually programming yourself to go forward. So instead of, I don't want a panic attack tomorrow, you just say, I want to be confident tomorrow. It's not rocket science. It's the first thing you learn in NLP, and it's so important. Because it's not that we don't understand negatives, it's just that we put a lot of passion with things we're negative about. And we don't put the passion with things that we're positive about.
Absolutely.
We don't strive for something that's really good. We strive for things that we don't want.
Very, very
and the brain gets the wrong message, and it's bound to give you it. It's the law of attraction on speed. It's just the wrong attraction. And that's what I teach people. So when you talked about children and these times, I had the extraordinary good luck this last week that my daughter said to me that my grandson wanted to be hypnotized by me. Well, I rarely do hypnosis anymore. I've sort of found a shortcut for it. And so when she said that, he's the sort of lad that he's autistic and he's got many issues. But he's on three things at once, three electronic gadgets at the same time. And if you switch one of them off, he goes, I was watching that. So I've never had the chance to sit him down and try and get him some logic in there. And so he came round and I was able to do what I usually do, which is I usually just tell people to close their eyes and then I just carry on talking. And so I was able to put a lot of ideas in his head about how life works and how the brain works and because he's autistic, he obviously takes things in as black or white. So it's very easy to help him reprogram himself. And he came up with a few issues of being bullied and things like that. And I gave him tips of how to deal with his own thoughts. Because you see, if you deal with a bully for a child, another one comes along later. If they can learn how not to be bullied, how to be confident and stand up, because you won't get bullied if you stand up for yourself. And you don't have to fight or do anything. You don't have to, punch the biggest lad there. It's not like that anymore. It's just you don't have to take any notice of it. And if you don't get a reaction, you don't get bullied. So I was able to give him loads of good stuff. And off he went. And you'll know a thing called the Circle of Excellence from NLP, and you can make it the Circle of Confidence. And I just did that. I gave him this magic circle that he was able to pull this ring out of his pocket that he didn't really have, throw it on the floor and step into confidence. So there's so many things we can do for the children. And everybody I've dealt with, I've even dealt with people in their 80s who've had anxiety all their life, and I've helped them remove it. And it always started off as a child, every time. there's something happens in their early years, usually around the age of 6. They have a traumatic incident, and these traumatic incidents aren't always anything that if you when you look back, you don't go, oh, that's horrendous. That even they go, that's so trivial. Now, it could be abuse or something really terrible, but what I found from working with thousands of people is it's not what happened to them that matters. It's how they feel about what happened to them. And within that, the main thing was that they thought they were to blame in some way. So it's very easy for me to say to a child, there is no way you can be to blame for somebody abusing you. It's just impossible. And as an adult, they get that. And it's the adult brain that's still running the child program. And it updates and it goes. And I've had people, I bet my neighbours think I sell drugs, because people come here, people come here with their heads like this, like this. Oh, Stephen, I've got all these problems. And they skip down my driveway.
Wow.
And when they skip down their driveway, they quite often come back for 5 or 6 hugs. Because it's sort of like, oh, I can't go without hugging you again. And off they go again. Wow. So my neighbours must go, what's that guy doing?
Up to? Listening to you, it's such a gift that you're bestowing on these people's lives. I love the essence of gifting, and I really am a true believer with regards to what you shared about perception. I love the fact that it's not so much fixing, okay, I'm going to sort out the bully out there, I'm going to do all that, because you're teaching the person it's all outside of them. It's like, what did you choose to believe as a result of this? Listeners, I really hope that you're tapping into what Stephen's sharing. Is like, start reflecting on how you show up in your own world. Like, what sort of decisions and beliefs have you come up with as a result of things that's happened in the past? I thank you so much for sharing that, Stephen. I wonder if you can just go into that a little bit more.
Well, the essence of everything I do, first of all, it's about simplifying everything. I don't take anything as like, oh, that's how it has to be. So I always simplify things to, well, how does it work? And I get it right down to the basics. And one of the main things I teach everybody is always look for the cause. If you have a symptom or several symptoms, there's usually a thread running through them. It might be a lack of self-worth or something like that. And once you find the cause of it and you deal with the cause of why you got like that, you don't need the symptoms anymore. The symptoms are just a manifestation of being told something. And you can see this from, there are so many manifestations of things, a lot of them triggered by our own language. So I've dealt with people who are going blind, and I say, what is it they've been going blind for 3 years. What happened 3 years ago you don't want to see? And a woman said, and she cried for about 5 minutes, a woman did, and she said, well, 3 years ago I got told my husband had dementia, and I cannot bear to see him suffer. I love him so much, I cannot bear to see him suffer. And I said, but that's why you're going blind. And she said, oh, at the same time I started going deaf. And I said, well, if you went blind, people could still tell you that he was suffering. But if you go blind and deaf, you can't be told. So you can't see it and you can't hear it. So you won't know, so you don't suffer. And I only caught on to it because she told me she was going blind, and she said it with no emotion. And I said, how long have you been going blind for? And she said 3 years, and she looked upset. So I knew something had happened 3 years before that was detrimental to her keeping her sight. And literally, I've got a way of talking to the unconscious where I can get a signal back. You'll know it as an idiomotor response, but I get people to stand up and let their unconscious push them forward for a yes. So I set up this yes signal with her, and I said to her unconscious, is this about, did you make her blind so she couldn't see her husband suffer? And it said yes. And I said, are you willing, do you understand now she didn't really mean that? And I'm going to teach her how to deal with that, with her husband's dementia. I'm going to teach her how to deal with that. Will you now release her from it? And it said yes. And a year later, she was 76, and a year later, her eyesight hadn't deteriorated anymore.
That is absolutely
So
remarkable. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
no, it literally, and the main thing I teach people is looking for these stories, because there's always a story. Because you see, pain should go away. You break your arm, it mends. You get the plaster off, you're not in pain again. So when somebody comes along and says, I broke my leg 10 years ago and I'm still in pain, there isn't anything physical anymore. But there's a protective state from the body saying, oh, perhaps if you don't run again, you won't trip over and you won't break your leg again. There's people I've dealt with where the problem has been that they fell off a horse or they fell off a motorbike. And then it gives them a problem, but it doesn't tell them not to ride the horse again. It just gives them backaches. So it's not very nice to ride the horse, but it's not very nice sitting down either. So it drops a hint, and we find out what the hint is, and we pass it as a message to them and say, this is what it's telling you. What do you want to do? Now, for most people, they say, well, I'm never riding a horse again. And so one day I had a woman who came who was 72, and she said, no, I want to ride a horse again. I'm not going to sit in a chair and just die. And I had to talk to her unconscious and say, she's prepared to put up with the risk. She just said she'd rather ride a horse tomorrow and fall off it and die than not ride it again. And I don't think it's your job to stop her. Wow. Will you turn the pain off? And it went.
Oh my God.
So I wasn't prepared for that, because up until then I'd forced everybody to almost go by its command. But then I realized it wasn't commanding them, because it could give them something so bad only when they sat on the horse. So it was dropping hints. I'd rather you didn't ride the horse again. So it's not for our unconscious to tell us things and make us do things. So it drops hints. So I've just created something in the last 2 weeks. So very few people on the planet will ever have heard of it. And it's called bilateral balance. And it's my mission now to get people to talk to their unconscious in a way that is not negative. So it's not getting confused 70% of the day, which is how many negative thoughts we have. 70% of our thoughts are negative. It's not getting confused 70% of the day. So when we tell it what we want and we tell it positive with passion, it just runs off and fetches it for us. That's a lot of its workload gone. Now we want it the same the other way around. We want the unconscious to tell us with clarity what the issue is. And then we get to decide, instead of dropping hints that we don't get. You see, things like fibromyalgia is people overdoing things until the body shuts down. Oh, wow. It's a very natural thing. I've helped, I keep saying 600, but that was years ago. I've probably helped about 700 people recover from fibromyalgia. Now, I get a lot of attacks about that it's an illness you can't recover from, but it isn't. It's a natural occurrence of people overdoing things to the extreme until the body shuts them down rather than them dying. Wow. And all I do is I get them to agree to listen to their body. And as soon as I get that agreement that they'll listen to the body, I go back to the unconscious and say, look, if you carry on keeping them in pain, how are they going to know when to stop? If they've done too much one day, how will they know to stop? Because if they're in an 8 out of 10 pain, they'd have to get up to a 9 before they knew to stop, by which time it's already too late. Mm-hmm. So I want you to switch all the pain off, and I want you to get them in a state of comfort, because I don't even want discomfort in the body. I want these people now, for the rest of their life, to go into this state where they go through, oh, I'm getting uncomfortable now. Oh, I'm feeling a bit tired. Right. Oh, it's starting to get a bit achy. Oh, it's a little bit painful. And at any point along that trail, they could stop. But if they stay in pain, how do they know to stop? They can't monitor themselves anymore. And it waits for them to give this agreement. Without the agreement, you can't get rid of it. With the agreement, it literally goes in the time that you're in treatment. I just love this so much. It's just
I can see it
such
oozing out
fabulous
of you.
work.
The passion is really, it's cultivated. You know what I really love is this communication and connection with ourselves. And I love the fact that we each have the innate ability to heal ourselves when we understand what the communication is. And I love your work because in essence, you're freeing up people to live their life. You're giving them a rebirthing of life because in all honesty, for Stephen, I cannot fathom being in constant pain for 30 years and in one conversation it's gone. That's a priceless experience upon so many levels, and you get to do that in your day-to-day life.
And the beauty is, I can teach this to anybody.
Wow.
Anybody can do this. It's not. It doesn't. You don't have to have a therapeutic background or anything. All you have to have is a love of other people, a caring nature. That's all you need. And like I say, I've trained doctors and all sorts of people. And they love it. Absolutely. Strangely, people with the most medical knowledge can't do it as well as those without, because the knowledge gets in the way. I got somebody in front of me, and I'm training some people, including a doctor, and a guy comes in and he's got a knee problem, and he says something about his meniscus. His meniscus is torn, and I'm just about to carry on and show these people how it works. And the doctor whispers to me, "You can't help him, Stephen." And I went, "Why?" He said, "Because his meniscus is torn and they don't actually repair themselves." And I went, "I can help him." He went, "Why are you so certain, Stephen?" I said, "Because I don't know what a meniscus is."
Oh, I love that.
It didn't matter to me. You see, if the guy's meniscus is torn, he can spend the rest of his life with a torn meniscus and the pain that says you've got a torn meniscus. Or he could just remember he's got some damage there and not need the pain.
Wow.
And that's all I do is I call it brain bargaining. Somebody comes along with a problem, they pass it to me, or they try to. The moment they try and pass it to me, their brain goes, "But I'm keeping them safe with this," and it pulls it back again. And then you have a tug of war of trying to get it off them. Now, if you snatch it off them, it's like a child with a blanket, that they suck on all the time. You can't take it off them. And a grown adult's no different. You can't take their safety blanket off them. So you have to give them logic that says, here's all the reasons you hold on to this. And they're not aware of those reasons. And as soon as you give it enough reasons, the unconscious gets to this level where it goes, "I'm keeping you safe, I'm keeping you safe." And then you give them all the reasons it's not safe to keep it. And when it gets higher than that, it has to let go.
Wow.
There's no option but to let go. And it's just such a simple thing. And I have many days where I think, if this is that clever, how come I thought of it?
Because you're a complete genius. You know what? I really love what you said. I don't know what a meniscus is. Listeners, that really got me. It got me thinking about is that it's within our own belief set and thinking that it has to show up like X. It has to mean this. We somewhat delete everything else. And sometimes not knowing about it is enough to release. And I love that you touched on that, is that you didn't have that, how can I say, the negative mindset of it won't work because of this. You had no framework around what that was anyway. You didn't know what it was. So you thought, well, my belief is that the body heals itself. So if I have that belief, I know it can figure it out.
I'm just looking for why they've still kept the pain, because there must be some benefit in it. The body doesn't do anything without a benefit in it, or a perceived benefit. So I'm looking for that perceived benefit and then seeing, well, that's not right. That doesn't protect you anymore. That's not helpful to you. We can throw it away. I mean, the most incredible thing I've ever seen, I'll cut the story short, but a young lady came for pain removal, and she had quite a distorted body. I mean, she was literally twisted and locked up from the waist upwards. Nothing moved. And I got her out of pain. She'd been in pain, as far as I know, from all her life, and she's probably late 30s, early 40s. She arrived she had to be carried from a car to my consulting room. And I got her out of pain, and this didn't take very long. and husband and her crying, and I'm trying not to. And the husband said, "Can you do anything with the posture?" And she was literally twisted up like this. And I said, "Can you move at all?" And she said, "Oh, yes." And she just bent from the waist and went back. That was her only movement. And so I said, my usual answer to anything is, "Can you help me with it?" I go, "Let's see." Because I don't know. I'm not doing it. I'm just helping. So I said, "Well, let's see." And when I work with people, I just put my hand on the shoulder and I get them to close their eyes. There's no trance involved or anything. And this is all I said. "I want your unconscious to bring you back into perfect balance and alignment as soon as it's safe and effective to do so." And I took my hand off. And the husband's chatting to me and he said, "Will that work?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, how soon will we know?" And I said, "It could be now, could be in a few minutes, could be hours, could be weeks, it could be years, it might never happen." And while I'm telling him, this woman goes from here to lean forward. And I thought, oh, she'll lean back. And she leant back and her hands dropped.
Oh my gosh.
And her head starts moving and she's watching us. Now, the weird thing is, when people have a massive change in front of me, they don't notice it themselves. So she's now just looking normally at both of us. And I was answering this question and I sort of like stopped halfway through. So he's watching me, "Why have you shut up now?" And then he looks at her. So there's me and him looking at her like this. Like, and then she goes, "What are you two looking at?" And then she went, "Oh," my head moves. Now, sorry.
No need to apologise. That's an amazing shift.
So I had about 2 days where I thought, I've seen a miracle. Because I only made that up on the spot. I mean, literally, it took me as long in the time I told you. And so I spent 2 days going, I think I have seen a miracle. And then I realised, and I'm going to ruin the effect now, all I'd done was, at some point in her life, she'd locked up in fear. Something had frightened her so much that she'd gone like, "Oh my God," and she'd locked up in fear. And all I'd done is make her relax. All I'd done is make her relax.
Your work is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea that this was the depth that you actually went to with your clients. We had a lovely conversation, but listening to the logic behaves, because so my background's in computing, so I'm very logical, and I love that she was locked in fear, hence the position. This person was holding this pain because of that. It's so logical that our body's actually using an essence of communication that takes us back to a time in order to protect us.
Yeah.
And I think it's so beautiful that it's not, "This has happened to me and it's hindering me." It is protection. But the minute you speak to the unconscious that "I'm okay now, I'm safe now, I'm hearing now, I'm listening, I'm absorbing the teaching that you've come to teach me," it's pretty much like a child, right? You wouldn't just say, "Go away, mummy, go away." You've got to just answer the child, connect and say, "What is it, sweetheart?" And the minute they feel fulfilled and heard and listened to, they go off and play with their friends or whatever activity they were immersed in. So, wow.
It's no different to you. You fall over, it really hurts. Your mum kisses your knee and it's better.
Wow.
The magic kiss, because we think it will be. And this is what I have. I don't have any belief that it won't work.
Yes, I like that. I love that. And I think, to be honest, that's a big part of it happening. I think it's you holding that safe space for it to do so, creates that environment for them to also feel safe to first be vulnerable enough to share and go back into where it was anchored in the first place. But secondly, to allow themselves to experience the shift. I can't really put into words, because I, in all honesty, I'm pretty much speechless. I'm even chewing on my words. Listeners, I really want you to get to grips with what this is for you. And again, I love the fact that Stephen shared so many different variations. So there's asthmatics, there's people that have diseases, physical pain, emotional pain. But like he said, the brain doesn't decipher it like that. all of it is registered in the brain as itself. So if we can get back to the root cause, and I want you to start thinking, so I know people that have migraines, they suffer with these things for long periods of time, anxieties, asthma attacks. So it's like, I wonder what these are actually communicating to you. And I wonder, listener, I really calls you to actually allow yourself to go there. I wonder how differently your life would be after a session with Stephen. I wonder what aspects of self you would then be able to bring to light as a result of addressing these things that could be of hindering you. Like Stephen said, 30 years, 50 years down the line, it's shocking.
It is, and it seems so trivial when you actually find it. It's like, why have I screwed my life up for 40 years from this?
Wow.
You see, even something as simple as exaggerating a problem gives you an exaggerated response. Yeah. If you believe it's pollen season and your eyes and nose are streaming and you expect it to be bad next year, just think about this. Everything that happens, these fluids are to eject the pollen. So the more you think it's going to be a problem, the more fluid you'll have to eject the problem. Yeah. And I dealt with somebody once, and she had all sorts of problems. And yet again, it was in front of a group of students. And she was a doctor, and I dealt with leukemia, fibromyalgia, arthritis in her hands, and hay fever in 50 minutes. And she came back in the room. We did find out 3 months later that her blood count changed, and it went better from the leukemia. But she came back in the room, and she said, "Stephen, I'm a bit concerned that you said you'd deal with the hay fever later, but it's gone." And you didn't even mention it. I said, "Well, no, because we mentioned it first, and then we gave the unconscious chance to change everything it needed to change. It's done it anyway. It doesn't need me to remind it." So she said, "Stephen," and she started tapping her cheeks, and she said, "But I'm a doctor, and I know that to get rid of the sinal fluid, I've got to either sniff or swallow, and I haven't done either. So where's this fluid gone?" And I said, typical me, "It's your snot, how do I know?"
Wow.
But after 5 minutes of doing that, she went, "Oh, my hands are straight now." Because she'd arrived like that, literally crippled up with it. But she didn't notice it until bit by bit, she kept going, "Oh, that's changed. I'm not in pain anywhere else either." So these are things that they're doing, but they're not aware of doing them. In the same way that they're not aware of putting the issue in place. When the issue's gone, they're not really aware it's gone until it becomes obvious.
Absolutely amazing. Stephen, I wonder if there's a final message, a departed message that you would like to leave with our listeners, because I'm just very eager for you to share some information in terms of websites and how they can connect with you. So I wonder if you could leave a final message just to kind of sum up your mission, your message to the world, and then let people know how they can get in touch with you.
Okay. So my mission is to get as many people on the planet out of pain as possible. And to do that, I can't do it all on my own, which is why I train other people to do it, because then they can continue long after I've gone. And it's really to say to people, just trust in yourself and your unconscious, even though you don't think you've got any control of it, you are controlling it all the time with every thought you have, everything you say in your head, everything you say about yourself derogatory. It just lowers your self-worth. And I would suggest that people go to my website, which is OldPain2Go.com, see the number 2 in it. But I would suggest then you put a / and put Academy. And I've got some things there that are free. And the first thing that you come to is there's 3 10-minute videos on self-worth. Now, because I've found self-worth to be behind most people's problems, that's free for you to have a look at. And I'm not joking when I say that I have people who have like a 0 self-worth, who have had a 10 just from watching the video. Wow. So go there and think your level of self-worth, and then listen to the video and join in with it, and it will change your self-worth. And then the second part of it is I've done some things on grief and things like that for people to listen to, where you can change how you feel about the loss of someone, which might be very applicable at the moment, unfortunately.
Mm.
So there's loads of stuff out there, and there's loads of stuff people like me post. Find them and just help yourself, because you don't come to somebody like me to be fixed. I don't do the work. I just have an idea of, you see, you're always running a program that you installed at some point. It was installed to protect you, and now it's either being overprotected or it isn't needed anymore. And we just find that and help you go, I don't need this anymore. And the moment you go, I don't need it anymore, you lose the problem.
Wow.
My life is so simple. I can't explain how simple my life is. Wow. Because I follow my own advice.
I love that. You're an embodiment of your brand. I love that.
I don't have any issues I need to clear up or anything. Other people might think I have.
Well, keep doing what you're doing and helping people to release their pain. I think it's absolutely remarkable. And like you said, listeners, you can go online to the website and / for the Academy for this, and there's some actual resources that you can actually access for free as well. And keep an eye out for the 2 new products that Stephen's also bringing forward. And Stephen, I really thank you for connecting with me on this platform. I really hope the listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have, because I have learned so much. I really have learned so much from you, and I would definitely like to have some conversations about a few things that's going around my mind. So really, thank you so much for spending this time with me.
Okay.
And yeah, just thank you for being so open and very generous with the listeners and sharing what you had to share, because I know there's a lot of content and a lot of golden nuggets that people can take away. So thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you for this golden opportunity to get in front of other people so I can help them.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.